Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday edition of The Sweat. I am Steve Buchanan alongside Julian Edlow, Josh Applebaum. We are with you for the next 2 hours here, part of the pregame power-up here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. What's coming up here on the show today? We're going to do a little bit of NFL high or low, give you some of our top NFL props for Week 15. We're going to do a little NFL price check, some of the top DFS options for today's slate. Then we're going to do a little holiday shopping, everybody's favorite, including me, giving gifts to some of the NFL teams that are still in playoff contention here. But we're going to start off, guys, with a little bit of NFL hangover. We had 3 Saturday games yesterday, and for the first time, we had a primetime game on Saturday night as Dan Campbell, as the Lions took on his mentor, Sean Payton, and the Broncos in Detroit. How did that game end up playing out here? Well, the student took down the teacher as Campbell's Lions blew out the Broncos 42-17. That's after no points were scored in the first quarter there. Jared Goff absolutely exploded for 5 touchdowns on 278 passing yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 100 receiving yards and a score, and rookie tight end Sam Laporta continues to absolutely smash here in his rookie season. 3 touchdowns on 5 receptions, setting a Lions record for receiving touchdowns in a season by a rookie tight end with 9 at this point. So after that, the Lions really had not looked good since their Week 9 bye, but they solidified their spot at the top of the NFC North. The Lions now have a 3-game lead over the second-place Minnesota with 3 games left. 2 of those games coming against the Vikings, guys. After the game, Coach Dan Campbell praised his team's ability to come home with a win against the coach who taught him everything he knows.
You have somebody you respect like I do him, and you've learned everything from, and in essence, you're doing the same things that he does with your own team. It feels good. But it's also, man, the ability for our team to win against somebody of his stature, Super Bowl winning coach that does it right. Yeah, that's good. That's a good win, man, because I know what he's about. So, I'm happy for our guys, that we got a W here when we needed it. Get to 10, and now we got 3 to go.
All right, so guys, it looked like it was going to be a really sloppy game in that first quarter there. Like I mentioned, 5 punts and a fumble in that first quarter, no points scored, and then the scoring just absolutely opened up after that, Julian.
Yeah, we talked about the total on the show yesterday, and it obviously went way over, but the Lions' defense and how poor it's been lately was part of why I liked the over in that game, and they were pretty solid, 17 to Denver, all in the second half. It was really just what that Detroit offense did at home, and they got their mojo back. They're a much better team playing indoors at home, and we'll see what they can do kind of going into the playoff picture in the NFC. But the Broncos, I think, are the more interesting talking point here because they had so much momentum. We thought this team was clearly going to miss the playoffs. They're going way under their win total. And now they're right in the mix, and they lose a key game here on the road. Happy that I stayed away from playing the side. We talked about it. I kind of liked Denver with the points, but so much sharp money. The betting splits told us the story on this game. I stayed away. Detroit, the side that everybody hammered, wound up being the right side. And we'll see what Denver can do here down the stretch. They have home games against the Patriots and Chargers that will be huge for them to get to 9 wins there.
All right, let's start talking about today's games here. We're going to do a little Empire State of Mind because 3 of the most intriguing games that I think we have on the board here, guys, all involved a New York team here. And let's start with that Jets and Dolphins game here, Josh. What version of Zach Wilson do we see here today, and what do you think the play is in this game?
I'm actually going to look toward taking the points here, guys. I know this is kind of a gross play, but I think there's a couple things going on in this game. Number one, let's look at the line movement toward Miami. Miami at home against the Jets. This game opened as high as Miami minus 13.5. Now, that was a pretty big spread going into it, and we've seen a massive adjustment toward the Jets. This game is all the way down, Miami minus 13.5 down to minus 8. When I left to come to the studio this morning, there are some 8.5s out there. So this thing continues to get down away from Miami toward the Jets. Now that's notable for a couple reasons. Number one, you're still kind of in a contrarian play here with the Jets. They're only getting around 45% of bets. Majority of bettors are still saying, I don't believe in the Jets. I still like Miami. Yet, despite a majority of bets going Miami, this thing continues to sink like a stone toward the Jets. And I think it's all about Tyreek Hill in this one, guys. Tyreek Hill, we don't know if he's going to play or not. There are rumors, Steve, that they're going to leave it up to Hill to decide whether or not he's going to play. It was funny. He mentioned in the last game where he got hurt, left the game. He thought he'd be really injured, and then he ran off looking like he's okay. He got a text from his wife in the locker room, Steve and Julian, and I think his wife said, "Get out there. There's no way you're missing this game." So it's all about the motivation from a family member maybe, but I like the points with the Jets in this one. The Lions going in their favor. Really good correlative betting play too. I mean, you're getting a team more than a touchdown here, an extremely low total game of 37. Now that total was as high as 41. You're down to 37. And you also have the rest advantage. You look at the Miami Dolphins. They played on Monday night. Jets played on Sunday. And you look at Zach Wilson. There's the drama of will he play, will he won't. He didn't even want to play at some point. Rodgers maybe had to talk him into it. But he ends up playing and had his best game of his career or maybe of the season here last time
AFC
out in a win. Player of the week. Yeah, him and Tommy Cutlets, Julian. So a couple guys
saw that coming.
you wouldn't expect, of course. But I like Zach Wilson over 177.5 passing yards. It's juiced up minus 125. This Miami team just gave up 327 to Will Levis.
Yeah.
Again, you had Wilson play great last week, threw for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. So I'm going to take the points in the Jets. And I'm going to go Wilson to have a good game here. Give me 178 or more for Wilson.
All right, Julian, we have another game here. The Giants and the legendary Tommy Cutlets, like we just mentioned here, going up against the Saints in New Orleans. This line has moved to -5 now in favor of the Saints. What side are you leaning on for this one?
I will fade the legendary Tommy Cutlets here. We got to do it at some point. They're on a winning streak. Everybody's buying in to this story now. I get it. It's cool. You're going on the road to New Orleans, and nobody believes in New Orleans right now. Right. So, it's a good buy low spot on the Saints as well. I cannot stand Derek Carr.
I'm with you.
I don't like him as a quarterback. But I like this Saints defense at home against a Tommy DeVito that is now probably feeling pretty good coming off all these wins. Prime time, he's got all the media coverage. His agent's now famous too. This is a whirlwind, one of those whirlwind weeks where you're getting all the attention, and maybe you forget that you're going on the road to play a really good Saints defense here. So more of a spot play for me than actually believing in the Saints. It's a Giants fade. Everybody wants to bet on the Giants now, and Tommy DeVito, what a story. We want to bet on him. I'll go the other way here, but it is not because the Saints have impressed me in any fashion, but would be a huge win for them in that division. Somebody's got to come out of the NFC South.
Josh, the bets favor the Giants in this one, but the money is almost kind of split down the middle.
Yeah, and that's music to my ears here, Steve, because, again, this is a play that Julian mentioned. I think he set up pretty well. It's a public play to the Giants in this spot. It always worries me if you're a dog getting over 60% of bets. Currently, the Giants are getting 68% of bets right now. So just from a trendy dog standpoint, typically those are the sides I like to either lay off of, fade, or obviously go the other way. The Giants, though, did have a line move. I don't think it's purely public here because you did open, New Orleans -6. You're down to 5.5. Now you're down to 5 at some shops. I saw one book get down to 4.5. Then maybe that was the buy low point on New Orleans to bring it back up to 5. My question is, do we get back to the 5.5? That'll be some late movement, almost reminiscent yesterday's game there to Detroit, where went down to the Broncos early and then came back toward Detroit. So again, I respect the move toward the Giants. I don't want to fall in love with this Tommy Cutlets hype. And again, you are in kind of a fade the trendy dog opportunity here. I'd look toward 2 things, guys, though. Maybe the over. It opened at 37, pretty low number, Steve. It's now up to 39. There's some 39s and 39.5s out there, so it is rising, which tells me you got some respected money, maybe in a higher scoring game. 63% bets, 85% money is on the over. That's a pretty good bet split. So maybe I'll bypass the trendy dog G-Men. I'll look toward the over here, and I'll give you a prop. Wan'Dale Robinson, over 31.5 receiving yards. It's really juiced up, -130. He's gone over that number in 2 of his last 3 games. He had 6 for 79 last week, and he's kind of becoming Tommy DeVito's kind of main target here, a guy who can make some moves and get you over that number. So I'll lean over for the game and over for Robinson.
Julian, rare opportunity to get the Cowboys as an underdog this week, but I know that you're siding with the Bills in this one.
Other way, not only do the betting splits tell the story that the Bills are the side, which I will leave to the guy that's going to break down the betting splits over here. I'm just going to break down the game for you because this is a bad spot for the Cowboys. The Cowboys have been dominant at home. They average just shy of 40 points per game at home. They've been on a run at home for a while now, 3 in a row at home, right? And the big win against the Eagles they're coming off of, big divisional opponent, revenge spot for earlier in the year that they were planning for. I don't think going to Buffalo, playing outdoors in mid-December, is going to be a cup of tea for this Dallas Cowboys team. They only average 23 points per game on the road. Bills coming off the big win over the Chiefs. Generally, you maybe want to back a team in a bounce-back spot off a loss, but in the Bills situation, they need all these wins if they're going to get in. Each win gives them more momentum going into the next week, I think. So I like Buffalo a lot at home. They're a good pass defense, good rush defense. I think they're going to limit Buffalo's offense. Probably lean towards the under as well.
Josh, real quick, the Dallas Cowboys have been underdogs twice. They were 3 and 3.5 point dogs, lost both those games.
Yeah, and hope they lose, hope they don't cover. I like the Bills here. I'm right there with Julian. Just from a data standpoint, they're only getting 40% of bets, but 70% of the money, and the line's going in their favor. Public's on Dallas, yet the Buffalo Bills open -1.5. They're up to -2. Some books even maybe going to 2.5. Why is the line going to the Bills if everyone's betting the trendy dog Cowboys? I love this fade spot of Dallas. We've seen this movie last 2 weeks, guys. Remember San Fran, Philly? Public Philly, line went to San Fran. San Fran won and covered. Same thing last week, Philly, Dallas. Public was Philly, line went to Dallas. Dallas won and covered. So I'm in the spot for the Bills, money line play. I'll give you a prop bet here.
Sure.
Rico Dowdle, over 16.5 rushing yards. Probably not a name you're expecting on the first segment here, guys. -120 the over. He's been getting a lot more carries recently. He had 46 last week. I like Dowdle, but give me the Bills for the game.
Yeah, I will say the only thing that worries me is how inaccurate Josh Allen has been over the past few weeks. We'll talk about that later in the show when we do some high or low here. But coming up next, we take a look at the AFC playoff picture. Can Joe Flacco really lead the Browns to the playoffs? Why are we talking about this man? We'll discuss later on here on The Sweat when we return.
DraftKings Network's Sunday pregame power-up.
Welcome back. You're watching The Sweat, part of the pregame power-up on VSiN and DraftKings Network. The Lombardi line is up next at 10 a.m. Eastern, followed by the legend Brent Musburger. Taking us up to kickoff, we still have some NFL price check and 2 Monday night games to break down. But first, let's look back at one of the NFL's 3 games here that we had on Saturday, talking about the Steelers and the Colts. Colts quarterback Gardner Minshew continued to make big plays as the Colts solidified their playoff position with a 30-13 win over the fading Steelers. Minshew matched his career high with 3 touchdown passes on 215 yards, and the Colts rushed for 170 yards as a team. Minshew and the Colts have now won 5 of 6 to move into that AFC playoff picture. And let's take a look at how that AFC playoff picture is looking like as of now. As we just mentioned there, Colts holding strong in the 7th spot after that win, with the Steelers dropping down to 500, and they are now 10th in the playoff picture here. The Bills and Texans now a half game behind Indy as they try to keep pace. With their loss last night over Detroit, the Broncos sit 11th in the conference at 7-7 and need a big final 3 weeks to get back into that playoff spot.
A bit embarrassing in the National Football League for that to take place.
You want to see the guys on the field decide the game. It's every week we're talking about something. To have a flag change the outcome of a game in that moment, I've played 7 years, never had offensive offsides called.
I've been in the league a long time, and I haven't had one like that.
Let us play the game, and then whatever happens, happens.
Boy, oh boy, the Chiefs don't like when something goes their way, but I didn't hear a lot of crying, when they played the Bills in overtime and everything fell into the way of the Chiefs here. So now the Chiefs are angry. They're coming into this week and they play the lowly Patriots. How do we feel about this one, Josh?
We feel pretty good about the New England Patriots. That's right. We feel good about the New England Patriots. I like the Pats and the points in this one, Steve. A couple things going on with this game. I always like to start with the market. What's the market telling me? Why? Because there are people way sharper than me, way smarter than me, who have the respect of the books, who move the numbers. And where's the number moving toward? It's moving toward the Patriots. This game opened Kansas City Chiefs as high as minus 10.5. You're now down to 8.5. Some books even got down to 8. Some books even touched 7.5. So pretty much all liability has been on the New England side. And this is a layup for the public. They're saying there's no way the Chiefs can lose another game. Right. This is a get-right spot, quote-unquote, against a team in the Patriots who's been pretty much terrible all year long. Currently, 80% of bets are on the Chiefs. So let's take away the line movement. Just from a bet against the public standpoint, this is your top contrarian play of the day, Steve. Only 20%. I like to be on that side. And the key to me is that not only are the Patriots contrarian, but the line's moving in their direction. So I'll take the points here. Patriots are also in a rest versus tired spot. They played Thursday. Chiefs played on Sunday. You also look at Patriots kind of with nothing to lose, playing that spoiler role. Belichick, when he's gone head-to-head against Kansas City, he's actually done pretty well holding down that KC offense. And correlative betting value. You're getting a team, at home over a touchdown in a super low total game of 37. Steve, you and I were mentioning earlier, you were asking about the lowest total of Mahomes' career.
Yep.
This is it. The only other one was back in 2017, the first game of his career, when it was a 37.5. So I like the Patriots in this spot. And just a side note here, both Reed and Mahomes get a fine, $50K, $100K. But what really annoyed me is Kadarius Toney. He didn't learn anything from that. He blamed the refs. It's like he's like, oh, I told the refs, to spot me. But he just did this. He looked to the side. He never actually looked at the ref and he got confirmation. It's like when your parents say, make sure you say thank you to that person. You're like, thank you, but you don't really mean it. You know what I mean? So I have no sympathy for the Chiefs here. I think the fact that they're crying out loud so much is actually telling me that they're a little bit nervous about their situation.
Julian, Josh just mentioned here, I was going to throw this to you here. This is the lowest total of Patrick Mahomes' career. If this stays at 37.5 was the one that was lowest prior to this in his rookie year in 2017. How do you feel about this game overall?
Yeah, and the public's betting the over. I'm not going to get my hands gross enough to bet on New England here, but I will do something that I guess is a little bit against the grain and recommend the Chiefs team total under. It's 23.5. You can get minus 120 on the under. Let's look at some Chiefs scores here. 17 last week against the Bills, 19 in Green Bay. They did go for 31 indoors against the Raiders, a team they know well. 17 against the Eagles, 21 against the Dolphins, 9 against the Broncos. They haven't been scoring this year. And they've been a terrible second half offense, as have the Patriots. If you want to pre-flop, bet the second half under, or just at halftime, see how the game looks, and bet under at halftime on the game, I think that's fine as well. But This Chiefs offense has not been scoring. And you look at the Patriots, they're easy to make fun of. First team in a million years to lose 3 straight without giving up 10 points or less. But what that does mean is that they gave up 10 or less 3 weeks in a row. The defense is playing pretty well. They're at home on a long week here. I think that the Chiefs are they'll probably win the game, but this could easily be a 17-10 type of Chiefs win. So I like the under on the team total.
Chiefs offense in the second half, 7.2 points in the second half.
They went three scoreless weeks in a row, and I think 5 in a row with less than a touchdown in the second half.
And no Pacheco again today.
And no Pacheco, very good point. All right, let's move on to Texans and Titans. A little bit of a surprising move here. It's not Davis Mills who's going to be starting for the Texans. It's going to be Case Keenum. And the reason being was he knows big games. Okay, I mean, I guess that's a way to do that. But obviously we have the Texans here as underdogs at +3.5. Titans coming off that improbable comeback against the Dolphins earlier in the week. Josh, what are your feelings on this one?
So this one's gone way back and forth. I mean, obviously the questions about the quarterback situation. I mean, you had to look at line if Stroud was healthy, and this speaks to just how great Stroud is and his importance to the spread. But you had Houston around a 4-point favorite on the road. Then with Stroud being out, we flipped, hopped the fence, went all the way the other side toward Tennessee, as high as 3.5 or 4. But there has been some buyback here. I think it's gone a little bit too much in favor of the Titans. Those 4s are down to 3.5s, and those 3.5s right now are really juiced up toward Houston, +3.5, -115, -120. So it looks like it's getting back down to 3. So I think just in terms of the overreaction, I think you see this a lot pretty much in all sports. Like LeBron's out, okay, let's bet against the Lakers. Tom Brady's out, bet against this team, whatever it may be. In this situation with no Stroud, the public is just saying, give me Tennessee. And what do we see from Tennessee last? They had a huge upset win as a huge double-digit dog against Miami. So public is all over Tennessee. They're getting upwards of almost 70% of bets here. But if you look at the bet splits for the Texans, guys, it's kind of interesting to me. They're only getting around 30% bets, more than 50% of the money. They would match a system also a dog off a blowout loss of 20 points or more. They lost, remember, 30-6 to the Jets last week. Those teams are 61% against the spread since 2018. So again, we're kind of buying low on Houston. We're kind of fading Tennessee after their big win at Miami. It's a divisional spot here, low total game. If you can still get the hook, I'd hold my nose and go Keenum 3.5.
Julian, for me, it's kind of tough to back Houston here because they're not only going to be without Stroud, they're going to be without Tank Dell, obviously, and most likely Nico Collins as well.
Yeah, it's not a game I'm ultimately going to get to the window on and bet, but I lean to Houston, getting the 3.5. I think it's good value. Obviously, Stroud has been tremendous, and they're without some offensive weapons, but I don't know if you've heard this, Steve, but Case Keenum knows how to play in big games. So I will buy whatever the Houston Texans are throwing at me and say that Case Keenum knows how to handle this game. He is a veteran. He's solid. It's not like we're getting downgraded to too far here. And with Tennessee, it's just a good spot to sell on the short week off the huge win. Divisional games, so these teams know each other well. You like divisional dogs. I do think this has moved what? So Houston was laying 4 at one point in time. We're getting over a touchdown move here on Stroud. That's just a little bit too heavy for me personally.
So obviously we've had a quarterback carousel in Cleveland here. Joe Flacco is the latest and greatest, it sounds like. They are 3-point favorites at home today. Cleveland is 4-0 ATS as a home favorite here. What do you like their chances against Justin Fields?
Yeah, this is an interesting game. A lot of sharp money coming in on the Bears, especially when the hook was available there, getting 3.5. The Bears have been improving. Yep. They're starting to talk about, hey, maybe Justin Fields is our guy and we'll keep the quarterback and do something else to improve the team with all of this draft capital. We'll see if they ultimately go in that direction or not. Playing at Cleveland is a very tough road defense. Cleveland has the best home defense in the NFL. They allow just under 13 points per game at home. So this is going to be a tough test for Justin Fields and the Bears. At the same time, is Joe Flacco going to turn back into a guy that's almost 40 that is coming off the couch, or is he going to keep playing this way? I don't know. I'm ultimately going to stay away from the game. I would play the under. I think this one's going to be pretty ugly. If I did anything, and it's low, it's 37.5, but I would go under on the game. But it's going to be very telling one way or another, whichever side does come through in this game.
Josh, quick thoughts on this one?
Quick thoughts, Chicago Bears. I'll go Bears in this spot. It reminds me a lot yesterday, guys, of that Minnesota-Cincy game where, again, public was all over Cincy, yet it pretty much hung around 3 and hinted at going down a little bit to the road team. Obviously, it lands on 3. That speaks to the importance of these key numbers. But currently, you're getting the Bears only 40% bets, 56% of the money, and it's really juiced back toward the Chicago Bears. This was minus 2.5 opener here for Cleveland, got to 3.5. Sharp guys took the 3.5 with the Chicago Bears. Now we're at 3, but it's really juiced up toward the Bears like it may get down to 2.5, Steve. So I got to respect kind of that late buyback here. I'm going to lean with the Bears. And I would just mention, I know you guys like the under, but it did rise a little bit, and Justin Fields is 15-9 to the over last 2 seasons. But Steve, it's going to be a rainy day in Cleveland here. How could that affect everything?
We don't care about rain.
I didn't mention the weather, just the rain. Just the rain.
See, there's a big
That's
difference
literally
between
mentioning the weather.
True.
Right. I didn't mention
But
the
not
weather.
in the way
It's
that
just
you would
raining.
expect.
And there's a big difference between like drizzle misting, like when you're walking through a Disneyland and you get misted,
True.
and then actual rain. So like that's the stuff I need to know when you're talking about the weather.
By the way, did you hear what Jake Browning said yesterday?
Tell me.
It was a revenge game against a team that cut him.
We're going to take a quick break here. We're going to talk about our favorite props for the Week 15 slate. We will answer that and after the break here, so stay tuned here to The Sweat on DraftKings Network and VSiN. Welcome back to the Sunday edition of The Sweat. Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, Josh Applebaum. We're going to continue our show here, and we're going to talk a little high or low. We're going to go over some prop bets on DraftKings Sportsbook and whether we think that number is too high or too low. Brilliant segment that we have here. Let's start here with Justin Fields. We were just talking about that Bears and Browns game here. His rushing yards for this game set at 57.5. This is a number he's gone over in 5 of the 9 games that he's played so far this year. He's averaging 51 per game, but the Browns have been obviously one of the best defenses, especially against the ground. Opposing quarterbacks averaging just 13 yards on the ground against the Browns. But that being said, they haven't faced a lot of mobile quarterbacks this year. Julian, what are your thoughts on Fields' rushing yards today?
Can I be really boring off the top and say just right? Because look at his game log. Right. Last week, 12 carries, 58 yards. Previous week, 12 carries, 59 yards. It's the 4th time this season that he's had between 57 and 59 yards rushing. This is right where the prop deserves to be. So which way do what do you put more stock in here? Do you put more stock in, hey, he's going on the road against a good Browns defense, they're going to limit him? Or do you put stock in, he's going against a really good pass rush, he's going to get out of the pocket and scramble here because he's not going to have many options to pass to against a good defense? I would lean over here. I think he maybe has to do more scampering than he wants to in this game. But again, it's against a really good defense. I don't have much confidence in it. This is right where the number should be.
Yeah, Josh, I was going to bring that up here. He might just have to do this by design because the Browns are getting so much pressure on him in this game.
You're exactly right, Steve. And again, let's look at kind of the number. There is no juice one way or the other. It's 57.5 minus 115 both ways. So the odds makers aren't really showing their hand where their liability is. A lot of reasons like the over. Obviously, Fields is an electric runner. He's gone, as you mentioned, Steve, 5 of his last 9 have gone over. He's averaged 51 during that time frame. But I'm not going to lean under here. I think this might be a little bit too high for a couple reasons. One, I'm going to go back to the weather. Just in terms of from a standpoint of a running quarterback, guys, you're expected to be rainy. Again, windy isn't going to really affect that. That's more of the passing game. But rainy, wet. If you look at the the stadium there for the dog pound, it's real grass. It's not natural. It's not turf or that kind of fake stuff. So could it get muddy? Could it get bogged down? Obviously, if you like a running quarterback, you want it in a dome or artificial turf. So I just think the footing could be a little bit hard for Justin Fields, and you're going up against this Browns defense that we all know is pretty ferocious up front. So I'll lean under here, but again, this is probably set correctly. I just feel like maybe it's a little bit, tiny bit high.
Let's talk about the new golden boy in Green Bay. That's Jordan Love and everything he's been doing for the Packers over the past month or so. His passing prop for today set at 248.5. Now, this is a number he's only gone over 5 times this season. But of those 5 times, 4 of them have been over the last 5 games. Like, he has been carving up opposing defenses and secondary, and now you're going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have allowed the 2nd most passing yards in the league, an average of 282 per game. What do you feel like for Jordan Love here, Josh?
I actually lean over in this one a little bit. Again, did see actually with this line, I like the points here with the Bucs because it's been a bit of a line freeze here. Now the total has fallen a little bit. There were some 43.5s down to 42.5. But I think you mentioned the key phrase there, Steve, going up against a really bad passing defense. Tampa Bay is giving up nearly 270 yards per game through the air, 3rd worst in the NFL. Jordan Love is going to get a pretty good matchup here against that Tampa Bay defense. So I expect him to play pretty well, kind of in a bounce back spot. And then also I'm looking at maybe the over 1.5 passing touchdowns. It's juiced up a little bit, minus 125. If you look at his game log, he only had 1 against the G-Men last week, but prior to that, 3 against Kansas City, 3 against Detroit, 2 against the Chargers, 2 against Pittsburgh. He had a pretty good string there of giving you at least 2 touchdowns or more. So I'll lean over 1.5. I do like the Bucs for the game and for the passing yardage against a really bad pass defense. Yeah, I'll go over 248.5.
Yeah, Julian, the Bucs have just been brutal against the passes here.
Well, you can tell when Steve moves from the analyst chair to the host chair when he sets up a question. Does he set it up neutral or does he set it up pointing to a side? I think Steve likes the over on Jordan Love passing yards. I have nothing to add to his analysis because Steve gave all the analysis on why Jordan Love is going to go over his passing yards. So let's make it 3 for 3.
Is that true, Steve? Do you like the over?
Well, so I won't tell you which side I'm on this one. Garrett Wilson over 56.5. What do you think, Julian?
All right. I do lean over here. I like what he's doing with Zach Wilson.
Yep.
Zach Wilson, like when we set these numbers, it's based off what you've done this season. Yep. Roughly an average on the season and then bake in the matchup and whatnot. But what Garrett Wilson does with Zach Wilson has been so much better than what he does with anybody else. You're big dogs in a game against Miami. You potentially have to be playing from behind here. That means hucking it up to your number one wideout. Investing in this Jets offense isn't comfortable generally by any means, but this is a pretty modest number for a really elite wide receiver one.
Yeah, Josh, Julian just kind of hit on it here for me here. Last week, he had 9 catches for 108 yards in that game with Zach Wilson. He's gone over this number 7 times already, but Zach Wilson has been so Jekyll and Hyde that it's hard to figure out which version you're going to get, and that obviously affects how Garrett Wilson does in the game.
Exactly. So again, you're always going to have to deal with this with Zach Wilson, although he is, again, coming off his best performance here, maybe of his career. So you do have maybe that's some momentum or confidence going into this one. Again, Tyreek Hill, is he out? It looks like the way the line is moving away from Miami toward the Jets that he might be out here. I'll go over with Garrett Wilson, over 56.5. Again, he had 9 for 180 last week. And if you look at just this past game we saw with Miami, I mean, they got torched by DeAndre Hopkins. He had 7 catches, 124 yards. He had a touchdown in that one. I think the game against Washington the week before, I want to say, I don't know, it was Dotson or one of those guys, Samuel. They had a pretty good game.
Samuel.
I know they're down big, so it's like easy garbage yards. But I think Wilson, obviously, his go-to guy is the wide receiver Wilson, his counterpart here. So I'll go over. I think the Jets make this a competitive game, a little bit back and forth. And again, Miami without Tyreek Hill is a completely different team, more competitive game. I think it's a kind of an addition here, or a good thing for both Wilsons.
Yeah, just to mention, Tyreek Hill not officially ruled out yet. They're going to let him decide if he's going to be playing in that game, but definitely something to watch because that offense was so dramatically different when Hill was off the field rather than when he was on the field. Let's go to this one here. This one's really interesting to me. Kyren Williams to go over under 93.5 rushing yards. This is going up against the Washington Commanders. Now, Washington has notoriously been a team that you attack through the air because they have one of the worst secondaries in the league. But then you look at Williams and how good he's been since coming back in week 12. You look at his rushing yards. He's had 143, 88, and 114. That's a total of 345 rushing yards on 62 carries, giving him an average of 5.5 yards per carry since he's returned.
Here comes
Washington. Yeah, there we go. Washington has been league average against the run. I was on the Wilson over, by the way. Okay. Washington has been league average against the run, so not necessarily a great spot, but what do you think about this one, Julian?
Yeah, this is, I think I'm going to lean under. It's a really high number.
It's very high,
for a guy that,
this is like a Derrick Henry number.
Yeah, we generally see these numbers for guys that have, right or wrong, established themselves as like the elite fantasy running backs out there. And Kyren Williams hasn't necessarily done that yet, but he's been very good for this Rams team. Now, I like the matchup better, like you said, through the air. I like the matchup for a Cooper Kupp over or touchdown score, a Puka Nacua touchdown score or yardage. The way the Rams have been moving, they're going to pass the ball in this game. So I'll just preface it by saying I guess I would prefer to play a receiver over than fade Williams. But the number is so high, it leaves me, nothing else to do here other than to say I lean under. It's so many yards.
Josh, is this like a bait here where like people go, well, he's been crushing this number. Of course he has to go over here.
Yeah, I think that's one thing you worry about, Steve, because anytime a guy blows up, obviously the odds makers are going to take note of that, and they're going to sometimes shift or kind of juice up some of these numbers just because they know the public will go Kyren Williams over no matter what it is, whether it's 89, 93, 105, they'll take the over anyway because they want to root for a good player to continue to have success. Now, Washington, as you mentioned, they're kind of middle of the pack in rush defense. They're giving up 114 a game. That's 17th in the NFL. But as you mentioned also, Kyren Williams has gone over this number in 4 of his last 6. In the one game he didn't go over, one of the 2 he didn't go over, he had 88 rushing yards. So he's been close even if he doesn't cash that thing. I'll lean a little bit over just because I like the way this kid is playing. But one thing that jumped out to me, Kyren Williams, he's a bit of a dual threat out of the backfield catching the ball. And if you look at his props in terms of receiving yards, it's 23.5, but over minus 120. That feels kind of low to me. He can break, one little dump off pass and get you 25 yards. You could cash that thing maybe theoretically on his first catch. So I'll lean toward maybe the receiving prop more than the rushing, just because I'm worried that he's doing so well that could be an inflated number rushing.
This is probably the juiciest over that we've given out here on the show, but Josh Allen to throw an interception, half of an interception set out here. It's at minus 166 to the over here, but he's thrown an interception in every game but 2 so far this season. And I mentioned this earlier in the show. His adjusted completion percentage, which is passes on target, sits at 69% over the last 4 games. That ranks him 24th over that span. Do we see an interception from Allen here today, Josh?
I mean, based on the price, obviously they're telling you that hey, you got to pay the -166 for him to throw an INT. So I would assume yes. What did you mention, Steve? 9 straight games with a pick, something like that.
There's only 2 games he has not thrown a pick.
9 in a row and 11 of 13 this season.
And I think it's almost like that Brett Favre mentality of like, I have so much confidence in myself. I'm a gunslinger. I can, throw lasers here. It's almost like he puts himself into dangerous situations because he's just so confident that he can make a big throw. So again, it's chalky. I would lean toward a pick here, but it's not my favorite bet on the board.
Obviously very chalky, but what are your thoughts here?
Yep, it's an over or pass. He's done it in 11 of 13. He's done it 9 in a row. Dallas ranks 7th in the NFL with 16 interceptions.
Yeah.
He's going to force one. Does Dallas catch it or not? We'll find out.
Yeah, a lot of pressure should be on Josh Allen in this game. We'll see how he responds. All right, up next, we hit the DFS streets as we find out which players are worth their salaries in NFL Price Check. Should you pay up for this Josh Allen guy, or is there value to be had at the quarterback position? Jeff and Pierce join us next to break it down. Welcome back to The Sweat. I'm Steve Buchanan, and we're going to be joined by two gentlemen that are going to help you build some daily fantasy lineups for today. Let's bring in Jeff Ulrich and Pierce Dietrich. Let's take a look. Pierce is looking a little upset. Jeff is happy. There we go. We need a little more smiles from you, Pierce. You're here to tell the people how to build their daily fantasy lineups for today. Jeff, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. Seeing Pierce smile, that was rarity. It's like twice in 10 years. So, yeah.
All right. Let's calm down. All right, let's talk about the quarterback position here, guys. Josh Allen is the highest priced quarterback on this slate, but his ownership is coming in pretty modest. It's being dominated by Matthew Stafford and Brock Purdy. Jeff, where are you going at the quarterback position here today?
Yeah, there's a lot of weather concerns today. Some of them are in Buffalo. I don't think that Josh Allen necessarily is a bad pick. I mean, he can obviously get it done with his legs. He's also 8,200. I would just stick with Brock Purdy, personally, 6,800 playing in a dome. I also think that Arizona is a team that's going to be able to keep this game a little bit close. It's a division rivalry. They're coming off a bye week. They're getting healthier. That's all good for Brock Purdy's stats. Brock Purdy's had 23 or more DraftKings points in 5 of his last 6 games. He's absolutely balling out right now. He's going up against Arizona secondary that is basically bottom 3 in success rate against the pass and EPA. This is just not a good secondary. And really, it's Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers. It almost doesn't matter who they're playing. But I think this game is going to be a little bit closer. San Francisco's banged up as well.
Yeah, Pierce, obviously with Josh Allen here, he's been very inaccurate over the past few weeks here. We're just talking about it on the show. His adjusted completion percentage over the past month sits at 69%, which would rank him 24th amongst all quarterbacks over that span. Are you paying $8,200 for him today?
I'm not going to pay that price for Josh Allen. He's always been relatively inconsistent. The Buffalo offense has not necessarily, produced every single week, and especially this season. I'm going to go with Joe Flacco. I guess one of the reasons why I was frowning is Joe Flacco's a thing. The quarterbacks in 2023 are pretty rough, but, I guess Flacco makes me smile a little bit considering what he's done the last 2 weeks. The Browns are going to set him loose. They let him throw 44 times in his first game, 45 times in his second game, 250 and 300 yards in those games respectively, 5 touchdowns. He looked fine last week, and he gets a pretty decent matchup against the Bears team that's pretty solid against the run, so they funnel a little bit to the pass, and they've allowed they're in the bottom 10 when it comes to passing yards allowed, the 3rd most passing touchdowns. Yeah, I can't believe it's Flacco for me, but I'll take the savings because I want to spend up at running back.
Pierce, I can always count on you to say something obscure to start off this segment. Let's go to running back here, Jeff. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey has been an absolute beast at that position, over 19 fantasy points numerous times this season. But Kyren Williams is drawing a lot of interest. He's looking like he's going to be the most owned running back on this slate.
Kyren Williams is balling. I think the Rams are just balling right now, too. I think they're going to absolutely destroy the Commanders. So I don't hate it. I would probably rather lean passing game there, though. Let's go with Rachaad White at 7K flat. Oh. Very, very good matchup. And there's not many bell cows left in the NFL, but Rachaad White is a bell cow back. He's averaged 17.4 rushes over his last 5 games. He's gone for 20 receiving yards or more in 4 of his last 5 games as well. He's playing the Packers. They give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. They're 23rd in success rate against the run. I think Rachaad White's in a spot to potentially find the end zone, to potentially even get over 100 yards on the ground again. He's been a lot more efficient as a runner lately. He did not start the season well running the ball, but Tampa Bay's improved a little bit, and he's such a good receiver. He can break a 30-yarder or anything on the drop of a hat. I like Tampa Bay in this game, and I like Rachaad White.
Pierce, I'm kind of leaning toward Bijan Robinson in this game here going against Carolina, who's been one of the worst run defenses in the league. Are you interested in him at all, or are you going somewhere else?
No, I'll go with the guy we talked about to be in the segment. Kyren Williams is absolutely a stud. He's going to be closer to CMC's salary by the end of the season, especially if you look at the upcoming games for the Rams. This is oddly familiar. We see the Rams do this 2 years ago when they went on the Super Bowl run. They had a very soft schedule, and then through the playoffs, it was still kind of soft. They've got some nice matchups. He has looked absolutely great. I know Jeff wants to target the pass, but he concedes that they're going to move the ball, and they're going to be in the red zone, and they're going to score touchdowns. These could be Kyren's touchdowns. He's been an absolute monster the last couple of weeks. This is a steal. I think he's going to be 9,000 soon.
Guys, this is probably the most interesting thing here on the slate. I think this is really going to break the slate or not. But Tyreek Hill is $9,900. He's the most expensive guy on this slate. We don't know his status. It basically is coming down to they're going to let Tyreek Hill decide if he can play or not. If that's the case, and that to me means he's most likely going to play. But the later this news comes out, it's really going to affect the ownership. As of right now, he's only getting about 8% ownership. That is absurd for Tyreek Hill. Are you taking a chance with Tyreek Hill, or are you going to go another direction, Pierce?
I'm going to play it safe and take the running backs that are expensive. That's where I'll spend my money because we know that CMC is going to produce. We know that Kyron's going to produce. And that means I'm going to have to do some crazy punting at wide receiver. And this is also where you can make or break the slate. You know, Wan'Dale Robinson's going to be a very popular way to save. You can see people going to the Cardinals. But I'm going to go with the chalky savings and DeMario Douglas returning from the concussion. Before the concussion, he had 5 games in a row where he's averaging 5 catches for around 50 yards, 10 easy points. They should be playing from behind in this game, so we're going to see more passing than maybe usual. I don't know if DeMario is going to provide much upside as the shifty slot receiver from a rando university, but that's kind of what the Patriots do. Bill Belichick loves those guys. So, yeah, give me DeMario and his safe floor.
Jeff, what are your thoughts here on Tyreek Hill, and then which direction are you going here? It's looking like Jaden Reed is looking like your most owned wide receiver on this slate.
Yeah, not super shocking. Tyreek Hill, if I was making 10 lineups, I would probably make one with him. It's just too good of an opportunity from an ownership perspective. Again, you're playing with like 100,000 other people if you're attacking the millionaire maker. So if you're attacking one of those big fields, I think Tyreek Hill would be worth it if he gets cleared, obviously. And things are looking like he would. So it's really risky, though. I think that the better play is to look at the Rams wide receivers. Puka Nacua is 7,300. I mean, the Washington Commanders they're just dead last in terms of basically EPA per play, success rate as a defense. Their secondary has been terrible all year. They give up a ton of 300-yard, 3 touchdown games to opposing quarterbacks. So Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, yeah, it's going to be chalky. But this is just one of those weeks where you're going to have to eat a little bit of chalk because some of these situations, like you even mentioned Jaden Reed, just too good. I mean, he's got a couple wide receivers out. He's going up against Tampa Bay. So, guys like Nacua, guys like Reed, you can't fade them all to this week. And I think Puka Nacua at 7,300 is in a really good bounce back spot. He's more of the outside inside corner, which I think gives Washington more trouble. I like him at 7,300.
Jeff, real quick, do you think it makes sense to use Stafford, Nacua, and Kupp and really just kind of soak up all that passing yard equity? Because it's really those 3 guys.
Yeah, I do. Aaron Donald's questionable. Washington's coming off a bye. I think the Rams will win, potentially by a touchdown, but I think that Washington keep it close. You come back with a guy like Curtis Samuel as well if you want a bit of a lower on play from that game.
All right, obviously Travis Kelce is one of the most expensive options here at tight end, but there are a plethora of options you could go down the board. Pierce, I know you love going down the board at tight end. Do you have like a 2K, 3K guy that you have for us here today?
I don't. I'm going to spend up a little bit, take the safe route, and Trey McBride. He's averaging 9 targets per game. He looks like basically the Cardinals' only weapon, although their receivers could come through with a big splash play, but they're not very consistent. He's a solid weapon. Decent stats on the year, given that he didn't even play at the beginning, or didn't play much at the beginning of the season. We expect that the Cardinals are going to be playing from behind. They're going to be passing a lot. We saw them get beat down pretty hard by the Rams a couple weeks ago, and they passed the ball 45 times in that game. San Francisco kind of does funnel towards the pass for 2 reasons. One, because they beat teams so badly, and they also have a pretty good rush defense. So you can see plenty of passing, plenty of opportunities for McBride to be a safe tight end today.
Jeff, you want to pay up or down here at tight end?
I like paying down. I mean, certainly, I actually like the call in the Arizona Cardinals receiving game. If you're looking for a low-owned stack, I think that's a really good place to pivot. But there's 2 guys, quickly. Tucker Kraft should get a boatload of targets here. Christian Watson probably out again. I'm not sure if he's been ruled out, but he's not 100%. Obviously, they have receiving issues. Kraft came through with a nice big play for them last week. And then Chig Okonkwo, 2,900, going up against a weaker secondary in terms of the Texans. They give up a lot of fantasy points to opposing tight ends.
Rams are only 3,100 and going up against one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league in Sam Howell. Jeff, where do you want to go on defense, special teams?
This one's easy. You got to play the Jets. Rainy game, Tua potentially without, a little bit of a banged up line here. No, I really like the Jets. They just put Connor Williams on IR. Teron Armstead was not 100% last week, didn't play. Jets have recorded 5 sacks themselves last week. They've averaged 3.3 sacks per game over their last 3 games. I mean, and Tyreek Hill,
Yep.
but obviously not 100%. Tua without Tyreek Hill, we saw last week, may not be that good. I really like the spot for the Jets. 2,500, you can save a lot of money.
Pierce, quickly, who do you like at defense, special team?
Cleveland Browns, we're looking for sacks, turnovers, touchdowns. Justin Fields is dynamic, but he can make mistakes, and the Browns are looking healthy on defense.
All right, guys, appreciate it. As always, we will get those DFS lineups in good standing, and we'll give you guys some of the winnings. Probably not. We're in late December here. Two teams are battling for playoff positioning, and they're both 6 and 7. That's what's on the menu when the Bucs and Packers face off today. We'll tackle that and some NFC matchups when the sweat returns on DraftKings Network and VSiN. Welcome back to hour number 2 here of The Sweat. Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, Josh Applebaum, part of the pregame power-up here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. Michael Lombardi coming up at 10 a.m. Eastern, followed by Brent Musburger taking you from 12 o'clock to kickoff here. What did you miss if you missed the first hour here? Some stories that we're following here from hour number 1. The legend of Tommy Cutlets, baby, lives on. Can DeVito lead the G-Men to their 4th straight win against the Saints?
No.
Elite Joe Flacco, some would say, helps push the Browns towards a playoff spot. And then the marquee matchup of the day, Dak and the Cowboys take on Josh Allen and the Bills, who I desperately need to miss the playoffs for the love of God. But ahead of that Cowboys matchup here with the Bills, Dallas receiver CeeDee Lamb was asked how much he appreciates the improvement of the Cowboys offense this season.
I'm very appreciative, I guess. You know what I'm saying? We're rolling. Number 1 in a lot of categories. Dak's leading the league in a lot of things, and I'm happy for him, man. He's very accurate. He's been balling out of control, and getting different guys the ball and being who Dak is. Us in this locker room is no surprise to us. It's just continue to go out there and play. But the media, I don't hear too much about interceptions now. It's funny. It's actually hilarious. It's actually real hilarious. But I'm gonna say the rest for whatever.
Didn't sound exactly too keen on that. He's like, I guess. But anyways, one thing that we don't have to guess about is that Dak Prescott is your leader right now for MVP. Julian, what are your thoughts on that? He's at plus 150.
Yeah, if the Cowboys could play every game in Dallas, Dak Prescott would absolutely win the MVP and put up historic numbers. The problem is they have to go on the road on days like today and go to Buffalo. I'm much more impressed, obviously, and much higher on the Niners. The question continues, it's like, but can we give it to Brock Purdy because of what McCaffrey does and Debo after the catch and Kittle and Ayuk and da-da-da and on and on. I think Purdy's been awesome. I think that Purdy should be favored, so that means that I think Purdy has the best value if I'm betting on MVP right now. Can I suck it up and bet Purdy plus 185 after 50-1 was available earlier in the season? No, I can't. I can only kick myself for not having the 50-1, 40-1, 30-1, any of that in pocket. But I think Purdy's the guy here. And if you like Buffalo today, you think Dak's going to drop. The Niners, whether they look good or bad, are going to beat the Cardinals. And then they're going to have a big Christmas Day game against Baltimore, the best team in the AFC. If they can get that home win, they're 4.5-point favorites on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. Purdy's going to be the favorite by when you wake up the morning after Christmas.
Josh, real quick, it looks like a two-headed race at this point now between Prescott and Purdy.
Yeah, and again, I think you can't really go wrong with either of these. To me,
you can. One of them or both of them are going to lose.
True, but in the eyes of the odds makers, they're pretty much even. So it kind of tells you that this is a bit of a toss-up here. Again, Dak, you got to give a lot of credit to. He's been awesome. You look at his stats; he's been great. Purdy, you make a good case, Julian, in terms of a little bit more value. You're getting 30 cents, 35 cents more in terms of your payout. My thing with Purdy, though, is, do the voters hold it against him that he's on such a good team? Is it like, hey, we could put anyone on that in that quarterback situation and they're going to put up great numbers? So maybe that's going to be something that's held against Purdy. Lamar is interesting to me at plus 475 just in terms of a much juicier payout, having a good year on a really good team. So that could be worth a look. I'll apply this, though, in terms of the Heisman race, which we saw in college football, guys. It felt like every week there was a new favorite, back and forth. So, we went a long while where Jalen Hurts was your favorite, Patrick Mahomes was your favorite. It just seems like every week there's a new player. So I think unless you're getting a really good number and you're thinking you're going to get some great closing line value, I'm of the opinion to kind of wait this thing out. I may not get the best price, but I want to grab a guy who's at least a little plus money going late into the season, week 17, week 18, where I maybe have more information on who's rising and who's falling. Because again, Jaden Daniels was great if you got him early, but again, he really wasn't the favorite until the very end of the season. So let's see where this late money breaks. Obviously, Dak, Purdy, Lamar, those are your favorites right now.
It's pretty hilarious, by the way, if Pike, can we bring the camera back over to here and just go to the very bottom? Jake Browning and Joe Flacco are the two names on the bottom. Who had that on their bingo card? I just stared at the board and I was like, that is hilarious. I have not seen those names down there.
All right, before we move on here, we did have a game yesterday that did affect the NFC playoff picture. Let's take a look back at that game yesterday that had a lot of impact on this race here. The Vikings were taken down by Jake Browning, and those Bengals came back from a 2-touchdown deficit. T. Higgins had 2 touchdowns in that game, and then Evan McPherson won it in overtime with that 39-yard field goal to solidify the win there for the Bengals here. So if you look at that playoff picture. The loss dropped Minnesota to 7-7, but surprisingly, they hold on to the 6th spot, at least for now. And that brings us to today, as Green Bay currently holds that 7th spot at 6-7. 5 other teams are also 6-7 heading into today's action here. It'll be interesting to see how much that bottom 2 in the NFC shuffles over the weekend here. 2 of those 6-7 teams go head-to-head in a battle of the Bays as Green Bay takes on Tampa Bay. We talked about this earlier, how Tampa just cannot stop the pass. Jordan Love has been on fire. Julian, where are you looking at this one? 3.5 points in favor of the home Packers.
I lean to the Packers at home here. You don't like laying that 3.5 with the hook, but the number was bigger at a point in time, so you could argue that you're getting value here. Tampa's been sharp in certain spots this year. Do I believe in that team at all? No. Do I believe in the defense? Certainly not, going on the road against a capable offense. Packers have a lot of pieces dinged up, and that's why this number has come down. That's your concern here. But with Tampa coming off a big win, the Packers, huge letdown, obviously, on Monday Night Football. I think this should be a get-right spot for Green Bay against a really bad Tampa defense and secondary. Yeah. Not confident enough to make it a bet today, though.
So I am siding with the Packers in this one. I do like everything I've seen from Jordan Love. What are your thoughts here?
Well, you both like Packers. I'm the contrarian. Give me Tampa Bay. Let's go. Tampa Bay plus 3.5 here, guys. I like the fact that this juice is all liability toward Tampa Bay, because if you look at the way this thing opened, it was Green Bay minus 3.5 throughout the week. It got down to 3. Never really got up to 4.5. So just in terms of looking at line history and the way a line is kind of trending, it really has trended either the same or down to Tampa Bay. It never trended up toward Green Bay. And if you look at these 3.5s, they're pretty much all juiced up toward the Tampa Bay side, plus 3.5, minus 115, minus 120. That tells me that, by the time we get to kickoff, maybe it gets down to 3. So if you do like Tampa Bay, you want to go contrarian, you got to get the hook now before it falls. Tampa Bay is only getting 40% of bets, but over 50% of the money. And here's a little angle for you guys. Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, as a road dog in his career, 17-13 against the spread. In terms of a road dog with Tampa Bay, 6-1 ATS. So he's won some of these games outright as a short road dog. To me, the key here is 3, your most common key number. If this is a 3-point win by Green Bay, you need that hook to cash there with Tampa Bay. And it is rest first tired, where Green Bay was on a short week here. So I'm going to go plus 3.5 with Tampa Bay. And then you guys mentioned it, Tampa Bay's pass defense is really terrible here. I'll give you a couple guys. Tucker Kraft. Mentioned last segment, over 33.5 receiving yards, minus 120. I like him to go over. His usage has been really up the last few weeks. And then also Jaden Reed, maybe look over 48.5 receiving yards. That's fishy. He's gone under this number in 3 straight, but he's second on the team in targets. Could be a big game for some of these receivers, tight ends for the Green Bay Packers.
All right, so we got the Rams, who need a win to stay alive here in the playoff picture here, going up against the Commanders. We just mentioned that in our price check segment here. Sam Howell continues to be one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league. Now you're going up against a team like the Rams, who looks like Aaron Donald is playing. I know he was added to the injury report with an illness. I believe it was either Friday or yesterday, but it looks like he is trending towards playing. Rams 6.5-point favorites at home here once again. What are your thoughts on this one, Josh?
So I think the obvious play is just to take the Rams. They were pretty competitive last week against the Ravens. They actually were leading that game and, obviously got walked off and lost that thing on a big play late in overtime. Washington, we all know, has been terrible. They've been getting blown out in all these games. But little cause for concern here, guys, is that the Rams are actually tied with the Chiefs for the most heavily bet public plays of the week. Both the Rams and the Chiefs are getting 80% of bets. But if you look at this line, it really hasn't moved off of Rams minus 6.5. Pretty much open 6.5. It stayed 6.5. Now, we are seeing a little juice toward the Rams, like it may go to 7. So if you do like the Rams, obviously it's going to be a very popular teaser play. Take them down to just laying a 0.5 point. I totally get that. If you like them, again, get the 6.5 before it gets to 7. If you like Washington, so here's my endorsement. I'm not saying I love Washington here. This is just going to hold me off of laying it with the Rams. You got to remember, Washington is also coming off a bye week, so they are rested in this spot. And if you look at that dog off a blowout system I mentioned earlier, these teams cover. When you lose by 20, come back the next week, 61% against the spread. So I'm just cautious here. It seems like an obvious play toward the Rams, but the line really hasn't moved at all. I'll throw this at you guys. Washington, we've talked about many times today. Terrible pass defense. Cooper Kupp, it's chalky, it's an obvious bet, but over 75.5 receiving yards is minus 125 to the over, and Washington gave 157 to Tyreek the last time they played. So Kupp is worth an angle, and again, I'm just wary of this heavy betting Rams, but the line really hasn't
I would
moved.
actually say that's not very chalky at this point because Nakua has really taken over as the wide receiver one at this point here. Whereas I know Cooper Kupp had a big game last week. I think he had over 140 receiving yards last week, but it's really been Nakua who's been the wide receiver one in this offense, even with Cooper Kupp coming back. I do like your play, especially in this matchup here, but I would say that the chalkiness of Cooper Kupp has certainly worn off. Julian, real quick to you, I don't know if you have a play on the side here, but this being the highest projected total on the board seems a little odd to me. 50 points for the over-under in this one.
Well, the Rams are going to score for sure. Maybe you could isolate them and go to a team total over at home against that Washington pass defense if you wanted to. Washington seems to put up some points, whether it's in garbage time or getting off to a decent start and fading. So I lean over. I'm not going to touch the total. If I did, I would probably isolate Rams team total. If I bet a side, I would go to the Rams as the teaser leg, get them to win the game. The problem is this is a pretty tough board, and I don't know what I would put that with as another teaser leg. So I have it set to the side. If I like something else, I'll put it with the Rams. I like the Kupp overs as well. So a few angles there. I haven't, formulated it into an actual play yet, but I lean to the Rams doing pretty well, scoring some points, and Cooper Kupp being a big part of that.
Kansas City is at 8.5 now, so you could bring that down to 2.5. That could be the second half of your leg.
Or you could put the Patriots to 14.5.
Dude, no.
Oh, all right. Now you're the other host?
Or take the Jets up to plus, 14.5,
Jets
something
to 14,
like that.
yeah.
Jets to 14.5 actually isn't terrible.
close,
Texans to 9.5.
Yeah.
I
got some options.
So the board is forming.
I just don't feel really good about any of them. Like, there's options there. I don't know, dude.
All right, we'll just keep going here. All right, we'll be back here after the break. Here came Brock Purdy and the 49ers wagon keep rolling against the Cardinals. Plus, we go off the board with some of our favorite lesser-known markets on DraftKings Sportsbook. We'll be back. Welcome back to hour number 2 here of the Sweat, part of the pre-game power-up here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, Josh Applebaum. Let's continue our preview of the Week 15 NFL schedule and focus on the team that really might be the most complete team in the NFL right now, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. They're taking on the Arizona Cardinals for the second time this season. Earlier this year, guys, they beat them 35-16, but that was with the newly benched Josh Dobbs, the savior from Minnesota for about 2 weeks.
Formerly known as the Pastronaut.
Yeah, that was the end of that one. Now we have Kyler Murray in the mix here. Does Kyler Murray being in the mix change anything for you guys? Obviously, it doesn't change much for the lines here because the 49ers are 12-point favorites on the road in this game, Josh.
So it does change it for me, and we were joking before during the break. It's like, who do you like, Josh, in this one? You're probably going to go Cardinals, right? That's right, I'm going Cardinals in this one. I'm a slave to, obviously, the stats and the line moves because, again, it tells me where respected money's going. But, guys, this game opened San Francisco minus 13.5. We're all the way down to 12, 11.5. I mean, that's a pretty big move. There's no significant injury that I'm aware of that's causing this line to fall. Pretty much San Fran is healthy and ready to go, yet you're seeing this big adjustment toward the Cardinals here at home. 74% of bets are laying the points here with San Francisco, yet this line is falling. That's a dead giveaway to me here that maybe San Fran wins but doesn't win in a huge blowout. Also, you look at Kyler Murray in the spot. He's 3-1 against the spread as a dog in his career. 3-1 ATS this year. In his career, he's 23-12 ATS, 66%. So I'll take the points here. Again, if you do want to tease them up, get yourself a little more security here. I understand that. And then also just a comment here, guys. We've seen the over rise a little bit, 46.5 up to 48.5. Maybe you get some points in this one. Also, McCaffrey, if you want to play his anytime touchdown, that's up to you. You can do what you want, but it's minus 350. I'll be honest.
That is absurd.
Have you guys ever seen an anytime TD that high? I don't think I have. That's absurd, man. That is so high. Just goes to show you when a guy continues to do so well, public, starts to, jump on the bandwagon, it just gets juiced up, overvalued. So again, it's crazy how high that line is. I just think you can't take it. I'll go Deebo Samuel, though, over 57.5 receiving yards, minus 130 to the over. He's gone 100 or more last 2 games, over this number in 4 straight.
Julian, this is going to be the 5th time this season that the 49ers have been at least a 10-point favorite in a game. They've gone 2-2 ATS in that span. Most recently against Seattle there, where they didn't cover the 14.5.
Yeah, we're at that stage of the season where it's getting close to Christmas. You're on the road. You're a double-digit favorite in the division. You're looking ahead to a big Christmas night game hosting the Baltimore Ravens, the top team in the AFC. I'm not saying that I'm betting the Cardinals here because I'm not, but I certainly can't bet the Niners side of this game. I would be stunned if they lost the game. But it's a tough spot to lay this many points. So, yeah, I would get more invested on the prop side of things. Josh likes Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk has been really good lately. Both of them should thrive in this game. Christian McCaffrey should be fine. But it's a game where you have to look at props almost rather than play such a big number.
Yeah, it is a huge number here. Like we mentioned here, this is the 5th time that they've been double-digit favorites, so we'll see where that one ends up landing. But like Josh mentioned, this has been moving in favor of the Cardinals, so see where that ends up closing here. All right, we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the sportsbook here. Now, we always give out bets that are on the front page, very obvious, spreads, totals, money lines, whatnot. We're going to talk about some things that you can go and get further into the book. Turn a couple pages here and see what you can find. Josh, you are going to start us off here. You have a play for Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, so I think one thing to remember is, before we get to the Offensive Player of the Year, you as the bettor have an advantage here because you get to pick what you bet on. Now, the odds makers, they have the advantage because we have to pay them the juice. But remember, the odds makers have to post all these numbers. We get to decide what we want to bet on. So do your research. It's not always the most obvious plays that you want to bet. Sometimes it's these little off-the-board things that maybe not everyone is focusing on. So I'm going to go toward the Tyreek Hill position here on Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, we've seen this be pretty much a coin flip throughout the season between Tyreek Hill and Christian McCaffrey. If you look at the updated numbers now, Tyreek Hill is a big move, minus 220. So you could say the value would be on McCaffrey, getting a plus money number at plus 150. But to me, guys, it was the last game where Tyreek Hill got hurt that I think won him this award. Because we often think about, your production on the field in a positive way is going to win you something. But sometimes when you're not there, that proves the point entirely. So to me, the fact that when Tyreek Hill got hurt, the Miami Dolphins looked like a completely different team. They were pedestrian offense. They couldn't get anything going. Suddenly, Tua goes from one of the best QBs in the league to, a QB that doesn't look like he's generating much offense. So I think the absence of Hill in that last game really proved that he is the offensive player of the year. Obviously, he's on this chase here for Megatron for the best receiving season of all time. McCaffrey's great. Give him all the credit in the world. But I ask you this, Steve. You take Tyreek off the Dolphins, they go down a ton. You take 100%. McCaffrey off of San Fran, they're probably still a really good team. It's a juicy number. Again, I don't love laying a 220, but I think Tyreek Hill is going to win this offensive rookie.
Let me just ask you this. How do you play this if Hill ends up being hurt and then ends up missing time?
So I wouldn't bet it now. Maybe it falls a little bit.
Sure.
Maybe McCaffrey has a huge game against Arizona, a bunch of TDs and has a bunch of rushing and receiving. Maybe this kind of closes the gap a little bit. So again, my play would be Hill. But to your point, really good point, Steve, it's not just what you like in terms of bet, it's when you place it. Maybe you wait. And again, we need confirmation on whether or not he's going to play today.
Right.
So we'll get that news, then kind of act accordingly.
Yeah, and again, for the people waiting on that Tyreek Hill news, the Dolphins are letting him decide if he's going to be playing in this game. That would tend me to believe that he's going to play because, like we saw last week when he tried to back out there after his wife scolded him via text.
Shouldn't it be up to the doctors, though?
Yeah, you would think so, but the wife knows everything.
If it's up to him, that means the doctors it's green light. It's just how do you feel?
Sure.
So I would think he would play.
Sure. Without a doubt. Julian, you're going for comeback player of the year. Now, this is something that we have talked about on the show for months now, it feels like. The line has shifted dramatically since then, but we have all kind of agreed that, and we talked about this, I feel like it was a month or so ago.
Yep.
You take Hamlin and Rodgers, and you're going to make money one way or the other.
I think there's only two people that can win this award. It's the most open to interpretation award, comeback player of the year. Is it a guy that tore his ACL, comes back, has 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns? Yeah. Nice comeback. Is it Alex Smith, who suffers a gruesome leg injury, plays in 7 games to come back, and that's enough to get you the award based on what you've done? We have the most unique candidate for this award that we've ever had in Damar Hamlin. The craziest on-field situation ever. Lucky to be alive, Damar Hamlin has stepped foot in an NFL game this season. At first it was on special teams, and then he got some snaps in Cincinnati, the place where the incident happened, in the regular season. A lot of voters are going to say no matter what, I am voting for Damar Hamlin, who's minus 450. I gave him out before the season at like minus 125. In season, he's dipped to minus 125 because he wasn't playing a lot. I think Damar Hamlin's going to win. If anybody else wins, if any other year Aaron Rodgers was going to step foot on the football field without a Damar Hamlin type of candidate, he would be the guy that's sitting at minus 450, and you would have to bet Aaron Rodgers. Nobody comes back from an Achilles injury in the same season and plays. So it's one of these two guys, and I think the market is completely appropriately priced right now because it is priced for minus 450 Hamlin, plus 450 Rodgers. There's two candidates. If you bet them both, you break even essentially. So the market is spot on. But keep an eye on it the rest of the way because, like you said, Steve, it's been a roller coaster the entire way. If there is any time where it is not priced for either of those two at the exact same price, I think you have to bet on one of them.
And we discussed this before, too. This is one of the only awards where, it doesn't matter what the stats are. This is a sentimental award. And this is why...
sometimes it does, though. Like I said, you can go back and look at guys, and it's like, oh, he got hurt and he came back. And had
at least from this year, at least.
Yeah. This year, the stats are not going to matter because Rodgers obviously has no stats. Right. Damar Hamlin has no significant stats. One of them is going to win the award.
Right. So I think that really kind of
Who's the better story?
Right. That kind of plays into the story where you have an advantage here because, the guys who are next in line, Tua at 10-1. I think it was Stafford at 12-1.
Yeah.
After that, these guys are coming back from injury, Tua from the concussion, Stafford from back injury. Was that the one that he had?
Shoulder, elbow.
So many
injuries.
Something.
A lot of them.
Yes, he's had so many injuries.
Yeah, so it's great. He's a great comeback, but guess what? You're not going to win this year.
We have someone who literally died on the field, and then we have somebody who came back in ridiculous time, especially for his age, from a torn Achilles on the 4th snap of the season of the game in week 1. So those are the guys that you're basically going through.
The interesting move here is going to be if Rodgers gets on the field, what does the number become? That's going to be really telling.
And then do you buy low on Hamlin if you get Hamlin down to minus 150, something like that?
It's really tough.
Would it be classic Rodgers, though? He gets cleared, he practices, then says, I'm not going to play. You're always worried about that situation.
But that's why I have been a believer that even if they're out of the playoffs, he's going to go back on the field just to say, I got back on the field and did this.
Very well could.
And I think that's what's going to end up happening here. We'll find out very soon because I think his window closes.
It would be next week. It would be the Christmas Eve or whatever game.
So real quickly here, I had something for today, actually. You can bet on who's going to lead the slate or whatever. I have Brock Purdy to have the most passing yards in this game at plus 950. There's obviously a lot of good options that you can choose from. But Purdy is someone who's actually come close to 400 yards already this season. And when you look at this game, it's a double digits. Well, does he need to throw, when he has double digits? He's actually gone over his passing yards in 3 of the 4 games already this season that the 49ers have been favorites by double digits. So it doesn't really matter at this point. It feels like Purdy's going to be in a good spot, especially in this matchup here against the Cardinals. I think he's going to be, if he's not the winner, I think he'll most definitely be up there. All right, we're going to take a quick break here on the Sweat. We have a couple of intriguing primetime matchups on the slate this week in Week 15, including Sunday night's Jaguars and Ravens clash, featuring 2 of the most exciting quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Trevor Lawrence. We give you our primetime picks when we come back. Got a couple blocks left here on the Sweat, part of the pregame power-up here on DraftKings Network. And VSiN, Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, Josh Applebaum. We're going to go a little prime time here and preview the Sunday night and Monday night football games. We've had some real duds on during these primetime games, but we got a good one, famous last words, coming up Sunday night when we have Trevor Lawrence and the Jags hosting Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Really close spread on this one here, guys. The Jags are underdogs at home for this one, 3.5-point dogs in this one. How are we feeling about this game here, Julian?
Yeah, so for me, it's a tough game. I think the Ravens at around 3 are worth a play, and we've obviously been bouncing back and forth there. But I'm going to isolate the game to the first half because we have, although Jacksonville has been very good out of the gates, we have the best first half team in the NFL in the Ravens, 10-3 against the spread, a perfect 6-0 first half ATS on the road this season.
Wow.
So they're going down to Jacksonville for another Sunday night game. We saw how Jacksonville did in primetime on that Monday night game. So I'm gonna go with the trend here if I play in this game and lay a couple points with Baltimore in the first half.
Yeah, so -2.5 there for Baltimore in the first half here for that one. Josh, what are your thoughts on this one here? Because I was curious on how Trevor Lawrence was going to look last week. I thought he looked great for somebody that looked like he had a debilitating ankle injury the week before. Came back, looked good. I almost feel like he faked the injury because of how good that he looked in that one. But the Ravens, we talk about defense, the Ravens have been phenomenal. And getting pressure on Trevor Lawrence, especially with this injury, I feel like it's going to be a key part of the defense here. But what side are you leaning on between Ravens and Jags?
This one goes out to our buddy Emerson Latia. I'm going with the hook. I'm going Jacksonville at home +3.5. I think this is a really good buy low, sell high opportunity because if you look at the Ravens, obviously great record, 10-3. They've won 3 straight. They walk off in overtime against the Rams last week. What have the Jags done? They've lost 2 straight. They've lost some close games. We're down big against Cleveland, came back in that one. Obviously lost to Browning in primetime against Cincinnati a couple weeks ago. So just from the standpoint of, public heavy on the Ravens playing well versus the public starting to question the Jacksonville Jaguars here in a home dog spot, it's also a really good contrarian play, guys, because if you look at the current bet splits, 70% of bets are going Ravens, big public play. But you actually had a look at line. This was kind of crazy. It was as high as like -5, -6. And then it immediately got down to like 3.5, and we're pretty much sitting 3.5, although a lot of these books are juiced up toward the Jag side, +3.5, -115, -120. So that tells me, even though you have heavy liability on the Ravens as a popular play in a primetime game, which is a great opportunity to bet against the public, the liability is still here with the Jags and the points. So I'll take the 3.5, guys. You would notice a couple things here. Trevor Lawrence at home as a home dog, 4-2 against the spread since the start of last season. Primetime dogs, it was a lot of favorites in primetime to start the year. They've started to bark back a little bit, 57% against the spread. And also, we know these primetime unders have been great, 30-16, 65%. But this total rose, Steve. It was 39.5. It's up to around 41. I was looking at this because I was saying, hey, I was making all this money on these primetime unders to start the year. Did you guys know the last 9 primetime games, the over is 8-1?
Yeah.
Massive adjustment here. So again, maybe you see this regression and lean a little bit over, but I got to take the Jags 3.5.
Yeah, the Jags this will be the 3rd time that they have been a home underdog, 2 blowout losses in those 2 games. So just something to keep in mind there if you're betting this one. What's a prop bet you like in this one, Josh?
I'm going to go Lamar Jackson. Chalky. I'm going to go over passing yards, though, over 213.5. It's -140 to the over, so it's juiced up a little bit here. Jacksonville's giving up 265 passing yards per game. That's 31st in the NFL. That's, I think, the way you can attack this game because if you look at Lamar Jackson, dual threat, you're always thinking about him running, but he's actually become a pretty good passer throughout his experience in the NFL, getting better each year. He's gone over this number in 3 of his last 4 games. The total is rising, so maybe you get a little more offensive output here for both teams. Primetime overs, as we just mentioned, have been pretty good here recently, 8-1 the last 9. Short spread, competitive game. I think you might have to throw the ball in this game. So the fact that it's only 213.5 and it's juiced up over -140, liability, again, has cashed this over quite a bit and going up against a very porous pass defense. Give me Jackson over 213.5 passing yards.
What do you think, Jules?
Yeah, I'll go kind of hand in hand with a play that works with that and go to the Zay Flowers receiving prop. He's down there at 52.5. He's gone over that 7 times this season. It's been a good matchup against Jacksonville for all the reasons that Josh just outlined. And the rest of that Ravens receiving core, especially with Mark Andrews out at tight end, has been suspect. So I like that he's a down-the-field threat. I like that he's a guy that you get the ball to at the line of scrimmage on some of those screens. Zay Flowers over 52.5 yards against Jacksonville.
OBJ, anytime touchdown, plus 310.
And the host likes to stay down the middle. That tells me you really like that.
That was pretty smooth.
Yeah, put me in the host chair.
Yeah, sure, no problem. All right, let's go over to the Monday night game. Still a lot of uncertainty about who's going to be under center for the Seahawks here. It is sounding kind of sort of like Drew Lock.
I don't think it's uncertainty. When Schefter tweets out signs are pointing, it could be Drew Lock under center on Monday night. It's going to be Drew Lock under center on Monday.
As a big baseball guy, I've been burned by Arson Judge. I've been burned by Ohtani to Toronto. So signs could be pointing to anything, but I need the confirmation. So
remember when Woj said it was going to be Jabari Smith, 1 overall? Remember that one, Julian?
Was a little
yeah, 2 years, a couple years ago.
A couple years ago, yeah.
Yeah, Woj missed one.
So Drew Lock is looking like he's going to be starting under center here. Now, I will say, especially in a tough matchup against the 49ers, he didn't look actually all that bad in that game. He had a 71% completion percentage. He was 22 of 31 for 269 yards, threw for 2 touchdowns, did have 2 interceptions, but I think that's pretty par for the course when you're going up against the 49ers. But again, this is going to be a very tough matchup against the Eagles here, who have a good defensive line. They are not good through the air, but how accurate can Drew Lock be in this game? You know, his second start here. What are your thoughts on this one, Julian?
Yeah, I mean, so game-wise, just looking at the market, odds and lines, subject to change. Right. I was getting ready to say pounce on Eagles -3. It went from 115 to 120 to 122. What do we got? Eagles -3.5, -105. It moved off the Schefter tweet, hinting towards this is going to be Drew Lock, while also saying Jalen Hurts, who I don't think any of us ever doubted. His props never came off the board or anything, but confirmed that he's going to go. So the Eagles are coming undone a little bit. Some tough games, the Niners game, then the road spot against Dallas. But I think they're going to benefit from the long week here, getting a little bit extra time to get right, playing a Seattle team without its quarterback. I do think this is a get-right spot for Seattle, and if we see it pop back to -3, I would be comfortable with it there.
What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, so I think obviously just the news of Schefter tweeting out just moments ago that it looks like it's going to be Drew Lock. Obviously, you're seeing the market move on that news. Julian mentioned, at first I really like Seattle. Probably still kind of lean Seattle in this one, but you open as high as Philly -4.5, got down to 3, didn't know if it's going to be Geno or Drew Lock. Now we're seeing this get up to 3.5. So if you like, obviously, the side with Seattle, you're going to get the hook now, but you're getting the hook because there's been an adjustment back toward Philadelphia. Now you have seen this total decrease a little bit on the news that Lock is expected to start. It was a 47 pretty much all morning. Now you're getting down to 46.5. But I still lean a little bit in the contrarian side, even with Lock, to take a 3.5. Can you sit back and get a 4? Let's see the overreaction here. To me, I think when you get these injuries, it's either you jump on them immediately before the odds makers adjust, or you wait it out and let kind of that overreaction set in. So do you get to a point where you can get Seattle, +4? Let's see how high this thing rises. But I think you're buying low on Seattle. They've lost 4 straight, but remember, they have covered their last 2 games. They were a big dog against San Fran, covered. Yep. Big dog against Dallas, they covered. Their offenses looked a little bit better here. And you mentioned Steve Drew Lock didn't even really look that bad his last game. So in this spot, Pete Carroll is 51-34 ATS as a dog in his career, 60%. And again, this total was rising. Now it's coming back down. Again, give me a primetime game with 80% of bets on Philly. To me, it's going to be Seattle or nothing. I'm going to wait and get the best number I can with the Seahawks.
I'll just throw this out to both of you. Do you think that the uncertainty of Smith and the potential of Lock is already baked into this, and we don't really see this rise much already?
The move from 3 to 3.5 is telling. That's kind of, how many points is Geno Smith worth these days? Comeback player of the year last year, right? Open to interpretation. Not having his way this year. I don't. Maybe going from 3 to 4 is the appropriate move. I don't know, but it's right in the ballpark. So it's partially baked in, and it's partially that it just doesn't matter that much these days in the NFL unless you have an elite quarterback.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say, just based upon only a half-point move, odds makers are telling you not a big difference between Lock and Geno Smith. Comparatively, Houston, Tennessee, that was a healthy Stroud, you're -4. Now you're Keenum, and you're getting 3.5, whatever the number is now. So, again, maybe not as big of a difference, which in a contrarian way, maybe you still continue to buy low on Seattle.
Give us a prop bet you like in this one, Josh.
So one that caught my eye in this one, let's see. I don't have one.
I can go real quick. So here's another interesting one that we'll see. Has the market baked in for Geno Smith or for Drew Lock? Tyler Lockett's receiving prop is 52.5 yards.
Yep.
I want to wait because I am confident that Schefter is pushing us in the right direction here. It's going to be Drew Lock. is Tyler Lockett's receiving prop going to drop when it is Drew Lock? Can I get 51.5? Can I get 50.5? When it does, if it does, I'll play the over. Otherwise, I'll play it at 52.5. I think, Lockett was the guy for Drew Lock last week. I wondered why I'm saying Lock so much, and now I'm realizing it's Lock and Lockett. That's what's getting me here. Lock to Lockett. 6 times for 89 yards last week against a very good Niners defense. Now you're going to do it on Monday night at home against a suspect Philly secondary. I think Lock to Lockett should get you more than 52.5
I actually
yards.
do have a prop.
Okay, go ahead.
DK Metcalf, real quick. Philly 260 allowed in the air. You also have Slay, who's hurt and banged up. Metcalf over 62.5, minus 140. And Noah Fant.
Same thought process.
Yeah, 21.5 over, minus 120.
There you go. Jackson Smith-Njigba is actually the top target getter in that game with Drew Lock.
Didn't catch any of them.
It's that time of year. Everyone is looking for the perfect gift. But what would you gift your favorite NFL team? We're going to do some little NFL shopping when we return here on The Sweat. I hate you. Final block of the sweat here during this pregame power-up on DraftKings Network and VSiN, Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, Josh Applebaum. We're going to do my least favorite thing during the holiday season, and that is some shopping. If anybody would like to Venmo me, that'd be much appreciated, because we all need some money at this point, but we're not actually buying things. We're going to give like figurative gifts to some of the NFL teams around the league. Julian, let's start with you. Who are you gifting? Which team are you giving a gift to?
I'm going to gift the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm going to give them 2 gifts, and then I'm going to give you guys, the bettors, a gift.
Okay.
All right. Oh, wow, I didn't even know we had this here. We have props.
Nice.
Here we go. We're giving tissues because all the Kansas City Chiefs are doing is crying about Kadarius Toney, who was off sides. Keep crying. I've never seen, you can complain about the officials, say whatever about the MVS, pass interference, very nice. At the end of the Packers game, non-call, whatever. But say a little something in your press conference and get over it. I've never seen a quarterback handshake where you go up, Mahomes goes up to Josh Allen. Worst call I've ever seen, bro.
And the audacity after what happened in overtime with them before.
Read the room. I have a lot of respect for Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. The whining from them, just get over it. And from my perspective, makeup calls. You got to take the Chiefs this week and get makeup calls. No makeup calls. Refs made the right call, and you whined about it all week. Throw more flags on the Chiefs if Kadarius Toney lines up offsides today. So besides the tissues, I'm giving the Chiefs more flags today. Not calling them on purpose, but you don't get makeup calls this week because of what happened last week. You're getting called for everything, and my gift to you as the bettors, here's what you're going to do. Mentioned it earlier in the show. Chiefs team total 23.5. Play the under. It doesn't mean they're going off today in New England. They're 9-4 to the under at 23.5 points on the season. They're down a touchdown from their scoring last season. This offense isn't the same, and they're going up on the road against a Patriots defense that, as bad as the offense has been, the defense has been pretty good. So you're not getting more flags today. Take a tissue, cry it out. You're scoring under 23.5 points today as my gift to the bettors because I want to give you guys something too. I'm very generous.
That's very nice of you. I'm glad we got to utilize props. That always
came in handy
brings
last
the
minute.
Quality of the show up.
I know.
Are you handing out tissues or any type of garment?
I'm going to hand out as a Chargers fan. Let's go to the Chargers people who sadly lost their team, left San Diego to go to L.A. They're going to wake up under the Christmas tree, and they're going to see grumpy old Bill Belichick coming over to be their new head coach. I'm going to give the Chargers...
Is he going to be wrapped up in a box, or is he just sitting there?
He's probably just sitting there extremely grumpy, but he's going to be happy.
Will he have a shirt on?
Depends
We've
what...
seen some videos without a shirt on.
Depends what Massachusetts...
LA, good weather. Might as well pop the top off.
Shirt on.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to give him Belichick. All jokes aside, Belichick, where's he going to go? Obviously, we're in the Boston region. Rumors are flying. You've heard Patriots reporters say that after that game, which was terrible, with the Colts in Germany, where Mac Jones throws that awful pick, that Robert Kraft made up his mind that day. I'm getting rid of Belichick. Does he have a year on his contract left? We don't know, so there's some details to be ironed out. But if there is a parting of the ways, if Belichick gets traded to another team, you're also hearing that he doesn't want to have to build everything from the ground up. He's over 70 years old. That's a really tough ask. But can you go to a team that already has a really good quarterback? It's a quarterback-driven league, good offensive weapons. The only thing they're missing is a good coach and a guy who can turn around their defense as well. Their defense has been a big issue, obviously, for the Chargers. So if Belichick takes over, he can not only be the head coach, but he can be the GM, theoretically, because they fired their GM as well. And maybe he takes this team from, obviously, a team that's perpetual, below 500 or 500 team, turn them into a winner. I'm going to give them Belichick, and I think they're going to be a better team for it.
Do you think that is the best landing spot for him? Because obviously there's been some rumors about Carolina, but that to me is like you're
that's a terrible job.
Going from one spot to another where you are, like you're not gaining anything. Like, do you think that the Chargers is the best landing spot for him?
I think the best landing spot is the Dallas Cowboys. Now the question there is...
Would they make that change though?
And I saw the tweet this morning, and McCarthy's talking about getting extended, right?
Yeah, which again, he's won a bunch of games, but
Dallas
what if they lose?
Spot. I'm with you.
In their first playoff game. To me, that's something where Jerry Jones says, "Hey,
I don't care. What if they go to the NFC Championship game and get rolled by San Francisco, and then it's like, do you want Mike McCarthy or Bill Belichick? I still don't care. Give me Bill Belichick."
Right.
And his son's the GM too, so he's not gonna. He'll be the coach, but not the GM.
No, that's an interesting spin to put it there because I think actually you're right. If they do go to the championship and get rolled,
it's still the perfect place for Bill wants to be a GM and a coach, GM and a coach. Well, Dallas is the one place where you can be like, well, this is just how it works here. The Jones family, we can't give you that here, but you can coach. So it's the one place that I feel like Bill would be like, okay, I'll actually do that.
I'm going to give some good health to Miami and the Dolphins. It is amazing to me that, thank you. It is amazing to me that this team is 9-4 with the amount of injuries that this team has sustained all throughout the year. Like, if you look at their injury report ahead of this game here today, they had 9 guys who were listed as questionable for this game against the Jets. And that includes guys like Tyreek Hill, Javon Holland, Xavier Howard, Raheem Mostert, like legit guys in that offense and defense that are huge playmakers. And to me, it's like this team needs a clean bill of health, because I think they're one of the more entertaining teams to watch. And when I'm watching playoff football, I want to see that team at full health playing the playoffs. So I think they're going to go all the way? I don't think so. But at the end of the day, I do think that this has been one of the most exciting teams. A lot of it has to do with Tyreek Hill, because we saw how that offense looked when he was off the field last week. But just the dynamic, the big play abilities, how good they can be on defense. I want to see that team fully healthy going into the playoffs and see if they can make some moves there. Let's go into our no sweat bets. So our favorite bets, the ones we have the least amount of conviction about. What is your no sweat bet for this week, Julian?
No sweat bet, we're going Buffalo Bills money line. We've talked about it a lot on the show, but it is a fantastic spot for the Bills and a terrible spot for the Cowboys. The Cowboys, what have we seen from them lately? They've been at home rolling teams. Huge spot. They drop what? 33 was it against the Eagles? Yep, 33-13 against the Eagles. 41 points on Seattle. 45 on Thanksgiving against the Commanders. The last time they were on the road, they scored 33, but it was against the Panthers. That doesn't count. At home, 49 against the Giants. Okay, let's see what Dallas looks like on the road here. 23 in Philly, 10 in San Francisco, 20 in LA against the Chargers, 16 in Arizona. Some of these LA and Arizona, these are indoors on the road, and they're still not scoring. Mid-December in Buffalo against a good defense, against a team that needs a win, got some momentum going last week in Kansas City. Dak's going to make mistakes against this Buffalo defense. Maybe Josh Allen makes his weekly mistake and throws his interception, as he's done 9 times in a row. I still think Buffalo is going to be fine in this game. They have a lot of matchups that they can exploit, and the spot for Dallas, just they average 40 a game at home, 23 a game on the road. This is going to get much tougher for the Dallas Cowboys in Buffalo in mid-December.
I just cannot get behind Buffalo, and it's not because I have them missing the playoffs. I really think the Cowboys roll in this one. What do you think, Josh?
So I was going to go with Julian here. I'm all in on Bills Mafia here. Fade the trendy dog play. Public Dallas line going to Buffalo. But I said, hey, that doesn't make very good television if we just agree with each other all the time.
We made great television today. Throwing tissues all around.
That's awesome. You did your part, Julian. So I'm going to go in a different direction. This is a play that I talked about earlier. New England Patriots. I'm taking the points of the Patriots today. I've already had multiple people on Twitter tell me, are you so insane to take the Patriots again? Yes, I am. Here's the thing you got to realize about me if you don't know it yet. These aren't my opinions. I'm going based upon what the market is doing. I'm a market-driven bettor. It's not that I love the Patriots.
Must be nice to come on the show and just not have opinions.
Well, I have my own opinions, but again, we all have them, and a lot of times they're wrong. So I'm going to go where the smart money in the market is moving, and it's going toward New England today. Public is all over Kansas City. 80% of bets going with the Chiefs. Get right spot. Remember, this is the game that was supposed to be Monday night, got flexed out, and Chiefs are saying, hey, let's roll the Patriots. However, this line is falling toward New England. Open minus 10.5, down to 8.5. I'm seeing some books get down to 8. If you like the Pats, get that hook now before it falls too much. It's a rest versus tired play. Patriots last played on Thursday. And again, Julian was talking about the crying the Chiefs are doing. By the way, I wanted to end the show on this, guys. Do you guys know who the ref is for the Patriots game tonight?
Somebody that Kansas City has a terrible ATS record with.
Sort of. Sean Hockley, who is regularly one of the top 5 most flag-happy crews. So they might get a lot of flags today.
He will help with my Christmas gift of giving the Chiefs more flags.
There you go. Keep crying. Patriots are going to cover today.
I have a brilliant idea for a segment. We get you on a couch.
Okay.
I will talk to you, but you are not allowed to look at how the splits are for the entire week. And then you give your own opinions. Glennon,
guess the line. Yeah.
Tom, get a crayon. Write that down. That's an idea for next week.
Has to be in crayon.
It has to be a crayon too. Write that down. I think we should do that.
And I'm going to have you guess all the weather for every single outdoor game.
That sounds like a horrible segment. All right, real quickly, my no sweat bet here for this week. I talked about it early in the show. I'm going over on Jordan Love's passing yards for this game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I gave some analysis during high low, so you know I like this one. But again, gone over this number only 5 times this season. Doesn't sound like a lot, but of those times he's gone over, 4 of them have been in over the last 5 games. This is probably the perfect matchup for him to go over once again against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are allowing the 2nd most passing yards in the league, an average of 282 per game. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds like a show to me.
That is a show.
That is a show here for this Sunday edition of The Sweat. Thank you for joining us here. The pregame power-up continues.
Have some more tissues.
The pregame power-up continues here. The Lombardi line is coming up from 10 to 12. Brent Musburger from 12 to kickoff. We will see you next week. Goodbye.